I'm Zach Frazier. I'm an MFA candidate in graphic design at Iowa State University, and I'm here to talk to you about the institution of white supremacy and how it benefits the institution of graphic design. In this presentation, I'm using the term institution to mean a system with defined traits, traditions, and members. Within the context of this presentation, white supremacy is understood to be an institution which exists to sustain the notion that whiteness is superior and of primary importance. Therefore, non-white individuals are inferior and of secondary importance, if any. Furthermore, when discussing issues relating to white supremacy, it's paramount that we not center experiences of white individuals. White individuals are not being expressly harmed by the force that is white supremacy. Non-white individuals, however, are. This is to mean the objective of the presentation is not to explain how the relationship between white supremacy and graphic design benefits white designers and white stakeholders. The objective of this presentation is to explain how the relationship between white supremacy and graphic design actively harms non-white designers and non-white stakeholders. In doing this, I'll speak from a perspective of my own as a Black person, but I cannot and will not speak for all non-white people or all Black people. What I can do is speak about the relationship between the institution that oppresses me, white supremacy, and the institution in which I practice graphic design. What this means is that white supremacy is not only the KKK, MAGA supporters, and white people saying the N-word. These are instances of overt white supremacy. Instances of covert white supremacy include things such as avoiding certain parts of your town, prioritizing a Eurocentric narrative, as well as curating and sustaining non-white exclusionary policies, histories, and communities. If this all seems like things that you know well and that are obvious and evident in your practice, good. However, according to the state of our discipline, this is very few of you, so please continue to listen to what I have to say here. There are a multitude of instances in which the institution of graphic design benefits from the institution of white supremacy, but in this presentation, I'm going to focus on just a few. If you're not a graphic design practitioner, educator, or whatever, I hope that you still find ways in which this presentation still applies to your practice, discipline, institution, which all have their own canon and histories that are more likely than not tied to white supremacy. As I am a graphic design student, practitioner, and educator, I am speaking to the issues of white supremacy's intrusion from such a perspective. So let's begin. What does white supremacy look like in graphic design? In the discipline, white supremacy looks like many things. As found in a series of interviews that I've done with Black graphic designers, as well as from various accounts from others, it looks like Black design being seen as ghetto, the promotion of Eurocentric ideals throughout the discipline, the lack of Black visibility within our history, within our canon, and the dumping of these two knowledge bases into our students. So, how can we clarify how these instances are white supremacist in nature? We can start by asking questions such as, what do we reference and what do they reference? Whose histories are we celebrating and whose histories have we erased? So when we look at blogs such as It's Nice That and Brand New, we can see that they're dominated by Eurocentric ideologies such as the International Typographic style, more commonly known as the Swiss International style. This is also seen in the text Meg's History of Graphic Design, where in the modern and postmodern sections, only 2 people of color are featured out of 242 designers. Earlier editions were even worse in terms of representation. Also, we should look into the drawbacks of the current graphic design history classroom. As Ferrer describes, the more time we spend dumping knowledge into students' heads, the less time they have to think about it critically. Compound this with the fact that we have not thought about our own canon in terms of racial oppression. So, how do we combat white supremacy in graphic design? In his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, Kendi defines a racist as someone who supports racist policies and institutions through action or inaction. He defines anti-racist as someone who actively supports anti-racist policy through their actions. In this presentation so far, I've outlined the ways in which graphic design has been sustained through acts of racist, yes, white supremacy. Now that that's addressed, let's talk about ways that we can actively oppose or combat white supremacy in graphic design. Audre Lorde said, "We can't dismantle the master's house with the master's tools. It's going to take something new to do this work." For starters, we can change who we reference and when we reference them. Important work on this is being done by people such as Jerome Harris from As Not For. He's done great work at exploring the issue of Black exclusion within the canon of graphic design, and he also offers a collection of about 30 works in the exhibition and the booklet that show. Also, why are we still referencing people who are self-declared fascist. There are more fascists than people of color in MEGs. We should not pretend that it's not a problem. It's a racist act, among other things. We should be soliciting experiential knowledge from stakeholders such as students, clients, community leaders, as well as artists and designers of color. We should elevate their experiences through counter-storytelling, interrogate the construction of the graphic design classroom in terms of race, and understand that curriculum as a racial text. In summary, we should be encouraging our students to generate knowledge about visual communication from their lived experience, not from a static, racially imbued text. So at this point, you might be asking, why does any of this matter? I'm a good designer, my students like me, my clients recommend me, why upset a system that's working? You're right, the system is working as designed, and non-white, non-male, non-Christian students are paying the price for it. We must become actively opposed to Eurocentricity, racial exclusion, and other forms of white supremacy within the discipline of graphic design. And that is not going to happen if we have good anti-racist intentions. We must also have good anti-racist action. A common concern that the Academy has with the line of questioning used in this presentation, which is one akin but not similar to decolonization theory, is what about the classics? To address the importance of the classics as such, maybe we should be asking, what of the classics? Outside of the realm of graphic design, what relevance do these classics truly have to the everyday existence of the practice of visual communication? Truthfully, very little. And while I'm on the topic of truth, I think it's important to end by discussing truth as a replacement for objectivity. Objectivity is something that we as designers search for throughout our practice. This is seen in terms of color theory, typographics, iconographic design, and on and on. The metrics with which we measure the efficacy of our discipline's created works are also influenced deeply by Eurocentricity through white supremacy. The objectivity that we teach is nothing more than collective subjectivity. Knowing this, how can we hope to find objectivity? More importantly, how can we expect a non-white student to do so at the same caliber as a white student? Simply, we can't, and it's racist to assume so. An anti-racist manner in which to alleviate this, as Emma Sante says, is to seek truth. As graphic designers, we cannot hope to seek truth in ourselves and in our work if we continue with a discipline that is imbued with the white supremacist ideology. We must dismantle and rebuild our canon and our practice in an intercultural and liberatory manner that is fit for the world as it truly exists, not as it's recorded in our history books. Antoinette Carroll of the Creative Reaction Lab often says that inequities are designed, so they must be redesigned. I struggle to think of an instance relating to graphic design where that is more true than in our canon and in our duties as educators and designers.